Chapter 14. Breaking the Law. The Find. A small figure raced across the grass alongside one of the larger buildings. The lampposts were scattered enough to make it difficult to even see the person darting from shadow to shadow. Of course, this was a school after all. There was really no need for excess light when no one was supposed to be around, and that suited Wanda just fine. She scurried across the next patch of grass, making it to a small doorway just before the main corner of the building. Regardless of the poor illumination, Wanda did not want to chance the front door cameras detecting her, but she still knew a thing or two about how to get by the school systems. "That's if they haven't changed them," she muttered to herself. It had been almost 15 years since she had last set foot into her old school. Back when she was a teacher here, things were pretty smooth. No worries of bad students, or of anything bad happening in general. Not that she was planning anything bad. If caught, her intentions would be misconstrued, just like the last time. It gave her great pleasure to get in and find out what she needed. To her, at least, it felt like a way of getting back at those who had canned her years ago. But her job now was important, more important than anything she had done in a long time, at least to her anyway. She reminded herself never to tell Devin how she truly felt. As far as he knew, she was along for the ride, and not concerned as she truly was. Wanda smirked. The thought of leaving Devin in the hands of the military was acceptable at first. At least Kaya would be able to keep an eye on him. Wanda almost doubled over when she found out that they would be meeting Braum. The chances of that were almost staggering, and yet it appeared as if it were meant to be. That should make for some interesting table talk next time I see them, she thought. Smirking at the idea, Wanda brought her attention back to the task at hand. She studied the door carefully. It had not changed at all since she had been gone. The ease of the situation had pushed her thoughts toward planning the next move before she was even finished here. If everything went as planned, she would be out of the city by morning and heading to find Devin, leaving this place preferably for the last time. Small parts of her deep down knew the sorrow of why she was so happy to leave her home. Being off-world had opened her eyes more from when she was stuck here for all those years. There was that stronger part that throttled the sadness, the part of her that deemed everything outside of Altera more important to what was going on. For some strange reason, although she never stopped to think about it, something deep inside her mind was telling her to get back to Earth. That's where it was going to happen. What it was, on the other hand, she had no clue. Wanda was never one to act on feelings and urges before. Why now, all of a sudden, she just did not know. There was nothing else a sharp-witted scientific mind could do under the circumstances. Now was the time to act. Wanda pulled out her little computer device, the one she had borrowed from the school long ago. It was still broken from the other day, but it still had its uses. She pressed and held the little red button on the side. "Come on, I know it'll work," she whispered. After a few seconds, there was a pop as a small lid on the top of the device opened up. Wanda dumped it over, holding her hand underneath. A long metal object sprung out of it and into her awaiting palm. It glistened in the dull light as the tip began to change shape into the form of a key. Wanda smirked again. Of all her little practical inventions, this was one she never told a soul about. She held the tip up to the door. The key changed shape a few times before settling on a solid form. Inserting the key, there was a click, and the door opened. Within minutes, she was deep in the heart of the building. Her eyes darted around at all of the classrooms she passed by, some of which she had spent a good portion of her teaching life in. It was hard not to let the memories come back too much, but the times she spent here were happy ones. After passing a few more classrooms, Wanda reached the room she was looking for, relieved that it was still here. A figure turned the corner down the hallway. Wanda squeezed into the small crevasse in the doorway, trying to remain out of sight. She peeked around the corner. They were gone. She breathed a small sigh of relief, wondering if she would still know any of the late-night janitors. Without hesitation, Wanda turned around, unlocked the door, and went inside. The Galactic Observatory was quite an achievement back in its time. It gave students and faculty alike the ability to get a detailed visual description of the whole galaxy at once. There were functions that could zoom in and out to all the known parts of explored space, even giving detailed descriptions of planets and systems. It was Wanda's crowning achievement as a teacher, which put her off a little as she turned the machine on. The first thing she noticed was that everything looked exactly how it did before she left. They had to have at least added something to it, Wanda mumbled disheartedly. She examined all of the equipment and filing systems, noticing the dust and clutter surrounding them. Wanda sighed, knowing that at least she would have a relatively easier time accessing what she needed. The large 12-foot screen at the top of the terminal slowly came to life as Wanda entered her access codes. Within a few seconds, she was in. As far as she could tell, everything looked the same. As the install process continued, her eyes sunk at what she saw, confirming her suspicions. There had been no modifications or updates to the programming. The timestamp on the data files dated back at least 15 years. Shaking off the mild irritation, Wanda cracked her knuckles and began to type. Strange astral images began to populate the large screen, each one forming sporadically over the other. Wanda looked up. She did not recognize any of the content displayed on the screen. Ignoring the bizarre effects, she zoomed the image out to view this part of the galaxy. Wanda hesitated for a second, trying to understand what she was seeing. The large swirl of light-coloured clouds dotted with pin-pricked stars seemed to be fading as the brilliant flare of interstellar gases was slowly dissolving into the dark nothingness. Wanda curiously blinked, still not quite recognizing the effects of what was going on. It had been a long time since she had observed the galactic image, but it would never have changed this much since then. She zoomed out even more as the whole galaxy came into view. The whole of the galaxy shivered in place, blurring its outline as if to hide what was going on inside. Never in her life had Wanda ever seen something like this before. She shook her head and rubbed her eyes. Something was wrong. It appeared that the computer had picked up a virus, infecting the system files. Wanda scrunched her lips, cursing at those who had left her marvellous device without the critical maintenance it needed. She did not have enough time to do a systems check. Ignoring the issue for now, Wanda resumed her work. The image zoomed into the galaxy, settling upon the planet Altera. Just as it did, the whole image began to darken as if a shadow were passing over the planet. Everything about it grew pale, as if a storm were brewing on the horizon. These disturbing images were starting to give Wanda the sense that maybe the machine was malfunctioning. She plugged in a few quick surface scans of the main databanks. All of the green check marks popped up next to the list of each file. Everything appeared to be normal as far as the software was concerned, but the machine was still acting buggy as ever. Man, I leave for a little while and things just fall apart, don't they? She asked the computer. There was, of course, no reply, but she knew that if it could, it would give her the 3rd degree on being neglectful toward her own creation. After a few more commands, the image zoomed in on the system of Earth. What Wanda saw made her eyes do somersaults. The whole system was out of whack. All of the planets were fading in and out, their moons blurring for a moment before settling back down. All of the celestial objects within the system, except for the Earth, were going through some kind of phase shift. Why? What in the hell is going on here? To her, it was becoming obvious that the machine was functioning on its last screw. Wanda began running more scripts through the machine, each one coming up with the same result. Every comprehensible quantum equation she could think of showed her that different elements were converging on this very part of the galaxy. She zoomed in on the Earth, but even there her eyes just could not make sense of what was going. The planet was still, as if encapsulated by an unknown force. The atmosphere speckled off the bright hue surrounding its outline. The colours of the planet changed into a kaleidoscope of murals, which began pulling the image into several different directions. With each change, the planet took on characteristics only to have thought to exist amongst the chameleons. It wobbled, it vibrated, it shimmered in its orbit, leaving Wanda to turn away from the bizarre scene. Then a thought occurred to her. Devin, she thought. His situation had brought back a theory from long ago that she knew was of some significance to what was going on. She had to stop looking at it in one dimension and pulled up her equations for parallel dimensions. Her mind raced with theories that had previously only existed on paper. This should not even be possible, she told herself, as the idea was becoming more apparent. She began to enter her computations, each line forming a nanosecond after it left her mind. All her life, she had only dreamed of discovering the ultimate theory that explained everything. It brought back memories of long days debating alternative theories with the top minds of the planet. No one bothered to follow up on them after spending most of the time problem-solving and critiquing each other's work. Wanda knew she would be the envy of every scientist in the galaxy if she could make it work. The militant sound of her fingers clicking away at the keyboard kept its lightning pace as her eyes glanced up at the screen. Many images began to layer upon the screen. There was one Earth, then there were two. Soon 6 Earths filled the view screen before her. The sound on the keyboard slowed. Wanda's jaw dropped as the fruition of her computations was sitting right in front of her. There in the centre of the screen was Earth, Devin's Earth. There were 5 others surrounding it in perfect sync, and they were closing in. "Oh my God!" she squeaked. They were all converging on the same spot. "Didn't anyone notice this earlier?" Wanda shook her head in disbelief. This was the most amazing find of the millennia. She wanted so much to pitch a tent here and camp out for the next few years just to study the events that were transpiring. No self-respecting scientist would let an opportunity like this pass them up. Yet something kept pulling her mind away from the marvel before her. It made her grind teeth to the point that she had to cram her eyes shut from the intensity. There was very little time to figure out the hows and whys of what was going on. She had to leave. She had to find out more of what was happening before she could move ahead. With each passing second, she began to feel a very strong urge about it. It settled her enough to be satisfied with the fact that things were happening around her, big things that she just could not fathom yet. She had to trust her instincts, regardless of her feelings otherwise. Her shoulders began to twitch as she debated with herself for a second whether to relieve her nervous itch. A habit she had been putting up with for a very long time. Without hesitation, Wanda got up and ran out of the room. After a few seconds, she ran back into the room, staring at an encasement of several devices sitting along the wall. She opened the case, removing one of the small devices. She lifted it up, her eyes gleaming at the grand treasure she had just discovered. "I'm in need of a replacement anyway," she announced proudly. Wanda ran her finger along the new device's outline. It was a more modernized version of the older one, but that did not tell her how well it ran. With unabated curiosity, Wanda pressed the power button on the new device. The screen instantly came to life as the operating procedures began running at a higher rate than before. Wanda was giddy. At least some things had been improved upon. She began running programs through it, entering each line of code at lightning speed. The screen flashed as a little light blinked from the top, synchronizing with a light from the large observational machine before her. She read the numbers as they started to count down. 7 more days before the planets merge into one. Wanda had some time, and she knew that Devon was safe for the moment, but she needed to find out more about what was going on. She needed to know the hows and whys. "Next stop," she said to her little device, "the Altarian Library." Securing the device deep within her vest, Wanda raced out of the room. 7 days. It seemed like forever. But Wanda knew, somehow deep down, she knew it was not going to be enough.